Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, we usually approach history as a kind of a forensic science.
Mm.
We look at pottery shards, we read treaties, we try to reconstruct, the economy of a dead civilization. It's very logical.
It's very safe, it's comfortable. We like to put the past in these neat little boxes.
Exactly. But then you stumble across a source that just refuses to stay in the box,
Yeah.
a source that feels less like a historical record and more like a fever dream. Today, we're looking at the introduction to Chasing Death from the collection Episode Tales. And I have to be honest, this isn't just a story about a guy in ancient Egypt. It feels like we're looking at history through a kaleidoscope. It's distorted, it's colorful, and it is genuinely unsettling.
It is. And what I love about this piece, why I'm so glad we're tackling it, is that it challenges our modern arrogance.
How so?
We think we know what the ancient world was like. We picture people farming along the Nile or building pyramids with copper tools.
Right, the standard textbook stuff.
But this text just says, no, look closer. It depicts a world where the boundary between the natural and the supernatural wasn't just thin, it was basically non-existent.
That's the perfect place to start. Before we even meet our main character, the text sets the stage with the section it calls the landscape of mystery. And it throws some imagery at us that I think would make a traditional historian's head just explode.
It's extremely specific imagery, too. It's not vague at all.
Right. It talks about the valleys of Babylon and Nineveh, classic
Yeah.
cradles of civilization.
Sure.
But then it says these places witnessed strange rituals and, get this, strange saucers and star beings descending into the valleys.
That phrase stopped me in my tracks. Saucers.
Yeah.
It's such a loaded word for us, in the 21st century. We immediately think of 1950s sci-fi or Roswell.
Of course.
But to see it used in an ancient narrative,
Mm-hmm.
it just shifts your whole perspective. It suggests the ancients were seeing things in the sky that they literally didn't have the words for.
So they reached for the language they had.
The language of gods and monsters, exactly.
It changes the whole verticality of history, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
Well, usually we think of ancient religion as people on the ground looking up, praying to these invisible forces. This text suggests the forces weren't so invisible.
They were coming down.
They were landing.
Exactly. It creates this sense of intrusion. The universe of this story isn't empty, it's crowded. And it's not just the sky. The text also mentions Egyptian magicians breathing life into lifeless stone.
Which is a terrifying concept if you really stop and visualize it. We're not
Yeah.
talking about a metaphor here. The text treats it as a simple fact.
And that's the key. That's the key to understanding the tragedy that follows. We have to accept the rules of this world.
Right.
In this world, stone can breathe, stars can land in your backyard, and fate is a real, tangible force. If you don't buy into that atmosphere, the rest of the story is just a soap opera.
But if you do accept it,
Then the story of Zayn becomes a horror story.
so let's meet Zayn. We leave the star beings of Babylon, and we zoom in on the Nile. And we start with a setup that, on the surface, feels incredibly familiar.
It does. We have a pharaoh and we have a prophecy.
The classic instigator of ancient drama.
The astrologers warn the pharaoh that a son will be born who will one day kill him.
It's the Oedipal framework, right? Or the Cronus myth. The father fears the son, and usually the father tries to solve this by killing the child.
Which is always the great irony of these self-fulfilling prophecies. The act of trying to prevent it is what sets the whole thing in motion.
And the pharaoh's queen, she knows this. She knows her husband will kill the infant.
So she makes a choice that echoes one of the most famous stories ever told.
Yeah.
She puts the child in a small boat, a basket, really, and sends him down the currents of the Nile.
Okay, so I have to ask, is this just a retelling of Moses? Because the parallels are so clear. The basket, the river, escaping death.
It's definitely pulling from that archetype, yes.
Uh-huh.
But I think where it diverges is much more interesting than the parallel itself.
Okay.
Think about the Moses story. Moses is found by the Pharaoh's daughter. He's raised in the palace,
He's a prince of Egypt.
right? He is raised by the very power structure he eventually has to fight. Zayn is different. The text tells us he isn't found by royalty at all. He's found by an engineer.
I thought that was such a specific, interesting detail. Not a farmer, not a soldier, an engineer.
It changes his entire psychological makeup, doesn't it? An engineer is a builder. They deal in logic, in structure, cause and effect.
If you put a stone here, the wall stands. If you don't, it falls.
Exactly. So Zayn grows up in a world of rules and logic, probably believing that the world makes sense. He's a commoner.
He has no idea he's royalty. He probably thinks his destiny is to build bridges or or design irrigation channels.
Precisely. He's a man of logic living in a world of pure magic. And that makes the revelation so much more painful.
The moment fate steps in.
When fate unveils the truth, and the text is a bit vague on the how, but it's very clear on the result, he discovers his true identity. He is the son of the pharaoh.
And he reunites with his mother, the queen. This should be the happy ending.
It should be.
The lost prince returns, the mother's sacrifice is rewarded, they're all together in the palace.
But the text is just brutal here. It says, just as destiny brought them together, betrayal tore them apart.
And it's not the stars or the stone statues that do it, it's a human.
A trusted friend.
That phrase, trusted friend, just carries so much weight. It's not some foreign army, it's someone they led into the room.
Betrayal requires intimacy. You can't be betrayed by a stranger. This friend turns traitor, murders the pharaoh.
Fulfilling the prophecy.
Fulfilling the prophecy that the son's return would lead to the king's death, yes.
Yeah.
And murders the queen.
It's a massacre, and it happens so fast. The text gives you this sense of whiplash.
It really does.
Zayn goes from humble engineer to Prince of Egypt to an orphan in what feels like a heartbeat.
It's the total destruction of his world. And the traitor, who has now seized the throne, has to decide what to do with Zayn. And this is where the story pivots from a political thriller into an existential nightmare.
Because he doesn't kill him.
No, he doesn't kill him.
Which seems like a tactical error, right? I mean, if you're seizing power, you kill the heir. That's Dictator 101.
Unless you want to inflict something you believe is worse than death, the traitor exiles him.
Explain that to me. Because in modern terms, exile just means you have to move to a different country. It's bad, but it's not that bad. Why is this framed as such an extreme punishment?
Because in the ancient world, your identity was tied completely to your land, your city, your kin. To be exiled was to be unmade. You have no legal protection. You have no god because the gods were often tied to a specific place. You are a ghost walking among the living.
Wow.
The traitor strips Zayn of his past, his future, his name, his home. He leaves him with nothing but his grief.
And that grief takes him to his mother's grave. The text paints this really vivid picture. He's there, probably in secret, just before he's forced to leave.
He's at the lowest point a human being can possibly reach.
Yeah.
He's looking at the dirt, covering the one person who ever truly sacrificed for him. The logic of his engineer upbringing has completely failed. Being a good person, being a builder, none of it stopped the chaos.
And then that landscape of mystery just crashes back into the story. A voice speaks to him.
A divine voice.
This is the moment, the pivot point for the whole narrative.
Absolutely.
The voice grants him a blessing. It tells him he will live forever, specifically until the day of judgment.
Let's just pause on that phrase for a second. Until the day of judgment. That is a terrifyingly long time.
It's not until the mountains fall or until the sun burns out. It implies a theological endpoint. He has to wait for the entire script of history to finish.
And think about the timing. If this voice had spoken to him a week earlier, when he was just a happy engineer, immortality might have seemed pretty cool. Hey, you have forever to build things.
Sure.
But the voice speaks to him now when he's broken, grieving, and homeless.
It freezes him in that state of trauma.
Exactly. It denies him the one thing a grieving person eventually wants, which is rest. Death is the natural end to grief. By taking away death, the voice is forcing him to carry that pain forever. It's locking the trauma into his DNA.
So is the voice evil? I mean, the text calls it a blessing, but it feels sadistic.
And that's the central ambiguity, isn't it? Is the divine in this story actually good, or is it just powerful? The gods of Babylon and Egypt, they weren't necessarily good in our modern sense. They were capricious. They played with humans. This feels like a god looking at a broken toy and saying, let's see how long this can last if I make it unbreakable.
That is a disturbing thought, an unbreakable broken toy. So Zayn, now immortal, now exiled, he has to go somewhere. He can't stay in Egypt.
So he does what many exiles do. He turns to the sea. The sea is the great place of no nation. It's a blank slate.
He boards a merchant ship. And I imagine he's just trying to disappear. He probably just wants to sit below deck, wait for the years to pass, find a new corner of the world to be miserable in.
He's trying to re-enter the human world, even if it's just on the margins. He's surrounding himself with sailors, with noise, with life.
But the narrative isn't done stripping things away from him. This is the scene that really gave me the creeps. He goes to sleep, he wakes up the next morning, and the ship is silent.
Which is That's impossible. A ship at sea is never silent. You have the creak of the wood, the snap of the sails, the shouting of the crew.
But the crew is gone. The captain is gone. Every single sailor has vanished.
Vanished. Just vanished. No blood, no bodies, no signs of a struggle.
And nothing, just erased.
Wow.
Imagine standing on that deck. You're in the middle of the ocean, 360 degrees of just water, and you realize you are completely, utterly alone.
It's the ultimate validation of his exile. The universe is telling him, no, you do not get to be with people. You do not get to have companions.
And then he realizes the ship is still moving. The text says it is sailing toward an unknown, unseen destination.
Which implies agency. The ship is being steered, but not by human hands.
It connects right back to the basket in the Nile, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. That's a brilliant parallel. As a baby, he was helpless in a basket, carried by the current. Now, as an immortal man, he is helpless on a ship, carried by... what? Fate? The curse itself.
It just reinforces this idea that he has zero control. He's an immortal passenger.
And think about that phrase, unknown destination. If you are immortal, the destination doesn't matter because you'll never really arrive.
You just keep going.
The journey is the punishment.
The title of the source is Chasing Death. When I first read that, I thought it meant he was some kind of warrior. But now, it feels like he's trying to catch up to the one thing that keeps running away from him.
Or that death is cleaning house around him. It took his parents. It took the sailors. It takes everyone he comes into contact with, but it refuses to take him. He's the eye of the hurricane.
So that brings us to the so what of this whole deep dive. We have this atmospheric, slightly terrifying story of Zayn, but why does it stick with us? What is the source trying to tell us about the human condition?
I think it's tackling the concept of time as an enemy.
Mm.
We spend our whole lives fighting for more time. We want to live longer. We want our legacies to last. This story just grabs you by the shoulders and says, be careful what you wish for.
Because time without connection is just torture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to challenge that just a little. Is it purely torture? Or is it a different kind of responsibility?
How do you mean?
Well, think about the engineer part of him again. If you're a builder and you were given eternity, eventually the grief has to fade, right?
Yeah.
It's the sharpest edge does. If you have until Judgment Day, you become the ultimate witness.
The ultimate witness.
You see empires rise and fall. You see the star beings come back. You see humanity leave the planet.
So you think there's a version of this where Zayn becomes a chronicler, guardian?
I think he becomes the landscape of mystery himself. He stops being a man and becomes a force of nature. But the cost is his humanity.
You can't be human and live forever.
No. To be human is to be finite. To be human is to know you're going to die. That's what gives our choices weight. If Zayn has infinite time, does he have any real choices left?
That's a heavy question. If you have infinite time, does anything you do today actually matter?
I'd argue it doesn't. And that's the real horror. Meaning comes from scarcity. We love because we know we will lose. We build because we know we decay. Zayn has lost the scarcity of time, so he might have just lost the ability to find meaning.
So let's wrap this up with a bit of a debate, because I'm torn on this. We're left with Zayn on this ghost ship, sailing into the fog. If you were in his shoes, literally standing on that deck, knowing everyone is gone, knowing you can't die, what do? Do you just scream, or do you start trying to sail the ghost ship?
My initial reaction is despair. Absolute crushing despair. But the survival instinct is a weird thing. Even if you can't die, you still want to do something.
Right.
I think eventually the engineer in him kicks back in. You start checking the ropes. You start looking at the stars. You try to figure out where the current is taking you.
You think you could find purpose in an empty ocean?
I think the human mind, or whatever Zayn's mind has become, it craves patterns. He would try to map the unknown, even if no one ever sees the map.
See, I think I disagree. I think the isolation breaks you. I think without the mirror of other people, you lose your sense of self. You just become another plank of wood on the ship. You just drift.
So he becomes part of the ship. That's a haunting thought.
It is. Chasing Death turns out to be a story not about a hero, but about a man being hollowed out by eternity.
And perhaps that's the warning the ancients were leaving for us. Don't envy the gods. Their lives are long, but they are terribly, terribly lonely.
Well, on that cheerful note, don't envy the gods, and maybe appreciate the fact that your time is limited. It's what makes it valuable.
Scarcity creates value. It's true in economics, and it's true in life.
Thanks for taking this strange, spooky trip to the Nile with us. We'll be back next time with something hopefully a little less Eternal.
but just as deep.
Always. See you then.